the dirty jokes now.
This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
And we're kicking back into 1988.
Sure.
Hey, wait, before we do that, don't you have a couple of shout-outs that you wanted to give?
Wow, Pete, you set me up so nicely with no hesitation.
Very smooth.
Well, you told me, you said before the show that I had to remind you
have a
that
little
you have
dumb banter first.
Well, no. Well, this is the dumb banter right here. This is it.
It is. Well, okay. Anyway, I just wanted to bring up two shout-outs. One is to a coworker, Jill, who today had just listened to our memories one, and she was very happy, and she specifically thought it was awesome that I picked A Very Brady Christmas for the Christmas draft. And I thought that made me so happy to hear that, because she loved it too, and she said it was the right choice for me. So I want to say thanks, Jill, for listening and always giving those comments.
Well, and like I said, that was the most on-brand pick of the entire evening.
That's true. So I went for it. I've noticed as I've been putting together all our top fives to like put out for polls and stuff that I'm not going to win many of these because I picked mine more for myself and less for votes. So
you tend to like things that aren't.
And with my competitive spirit, that's kind of surprising, but that's how much I love nostalgia and memories too.
Right. Well, and your nostalgia is your nostalgia and your memories. And those are the things that are most important to you. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's the most popular. It's what's important to you.
Speaking of the Brady Bunch, I'm watching it again, and I am down to literally the last episode is all I have left.
Holy Toledo!
So
wow,
are you feeling sad?
It's been a fun. It is sad because it's just a comfort show. You just throw it on, and it's just nice and easy to watch. And so when it's all done, it's kind of like,
Then you can get into Newhart.
I would have.
Yeah, well, I've got a list of things, so it's going from there. Speaking of which, you guys probably haven't watched the show Shrinking on Apple TV.
No.
Oh my God, Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. It is. So
I did watch one episode
because watching Ted Lasso, it always pops up on there, and I looked at it for a long time, and then my son actually started watching it, and me and my wife decided to check it out, and we've watched about 4 or 5 now, and I think I might like it better than Ted Lasso, at least maybe not the original Ted Lasso, but like currently right now. It is just so great. That show is awesome.
Brad, could you argue, in your opinion, is this the seminal work for Harrison Ford?
Well, we know that my history and nostalgia of Harrison Ford is a little different from yours.
Right. Yes.
But no, actually, what I will say is I think, speaking of what we're going to talk about later tonight, award-worthy comedy performances, I hope he wins something for this show. I am just mesmerized when he's on the screen. I think he is just amazing. He's 80 years old, and he is so good in this role and on this show. And it's just so great to see him out there. So
that's good to hear.
I hope he wins an Emmy or something.
Well, he's got my vote, and I haven't even seen it yet.
All right, then. The other shout out I wanted to give, and she'll be expecting this one at some point, is when I was up meeting a bunch of our former classmates and hometown people for the state basketball tournament last weekend. I had a nice chat with Rhonda.
Oh, my favorite.
Nice. And Rhonda, was on the show last year once, and she's willing to come on anytime again, she said, but she just listened to our road trip episode and loved it. And I said, have you seen the movie Fear? And she got so excited because it was coming out Monday. And so it was just nice to see Rhonda and how much she supports us, and it was a great time. And so I wanted to make sure that we got her out there because you guys, of course, would want to say that as well. You weren't there.
Yes, we all.
You're always kind of there.
I wasn't, but we all love Rhonda, and nobody has more school spirit, even still to this day, than Rhonda.
True.
Yes, yep. I would completely agree with that statement. She is the best.
Right. So
that just also being there. So our hometown basketball team just won the state championship, which was just wonderful for everybody.
Oh, we will cheer for our
Congratulations to the
team, our
Russell Tyler
school.
Ruth
We will
Knights.
fight for our colors true.
Are you going to go all the way?
And we will have the victory and show our loyalty, for we are the bold Knights of Blue. All right, that's good.
Okay, one verse. Anyway, kind of an oversight in our 88 memories. We didn't bring up the first state tournament basketball team that RTR had,
Yes.
which we did mention in our 87 episode with Johnny Mulkern. So there's another shout out.
Who was on that team?
So we talked about it because he was on that team, but the 88 is the year where they actually, 87 was the beginning of the season. 88's when they actually made it. And that was like the highlight of the whole year. And the fact that none of us brought it up is kind of odd.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was a
It's
great
like-
time
it's on its
going to
own
St.
pedestal,
Paul,
so.
Civic Center, first time, small town people getting out of school.
Well,
it was
and
like
see,
Hoosiers.
I didn't.
It was just
I didn't
Hoosiers
actually.
in real life.
Except for we got smoked in the champ. Well, not we. I shouldn't say me, but De La
Let's
Salle,
blame
yeah,
that on
they-
Mulkern. That was specifically on Mulkern.
Easy.
Sorry, I don't want to offend anybody.
I'm joking.
But I think everybody knows that De La Salle, played a good game that day. Let's put it that way.
They were on point. Yeah. Well, and I didn't go to that game. I went the next year in '89. And yeah, it is weird we forgot it because I brought up my sporting exploits.
Yes,
and it would have
peaked in
fed right
7th
into it. And so yeah, it's a little strange that
Well,
none of us
first
brought
year,
it up.
that first year, we were all just excited to be there. That
Mhm.
second year was more heartbreaking because we had full expectation to win and win easily, and
Right.
it did not go that
It's the
way.
only
Kind of like this.
it's the only time we
current
lost.
They
team
never
last
trailed.
year.
They never trailed in a game the entire season until the championship game. At any
Yeah.
point,
Is that
That
a
was tough.
true fact?
that is absolutely true. Yes.
So also then in the Staples Motley game, which was pretty close, we never even trailed for
we
like
never
a moment.
trailed.
in
We
that
got
game.
out to kind of a hot start in that game,
Huh.
and held on. It was a close game, but we never trailed.
Well, that is a heck of a fact. right
Speaking
there.
of never trailed, they never trailed in the latest championship game either. That was a doozy, for sure.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was going
hey,
to bring up that Pete said that the current Knights team made it to the state last year, and another shout out friend Travis was talking about that too, and how last year everybody's just happy to be there, and like they played a good, they didn't win the championship or anything, but this year was different, and the expectation was more we can
Well,
win
they had
this.
a lot of kids hurt last year,
and they
too.
went out and did it.
Right. Well, and I was looking back at their playoff run. Do you know which game was the closest game they played?
In which season?
This year's team on their way to state.
I think it was
Dawson Boyd.
No, the first game of the section, like they really kind of squeaked by one of the
Very
lower
first
seeds.
game. Very
Yeah.
first game, they only won by 3. Imagine that if they would have lost that one, it would have been over before it even started. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Oh, the
Heads
fickle
would roll.
nature of sports.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
All right, well,
fellas.
enough sports talk.
Yeah.
We're here tonight
What
to
we're
talk
gonna talk
about
about.
my choice for 1988. So we've already brought up it's going to be all movies this month. Not that we could do a whole nother month on just TV for sure, and there was a bunch of great music too. We could do this year for a long time. But I was looking at the movie list, and this was the hardest choice I ever had. I'm like, well, Die Hard, duh. But we're gonna save that, and we're gonna do Die Hard because that's not just one of my. I mean, we all love Die Hard. Who doesn't love Die Hard?
Right.
So we'll do that together. It's probably like a Christmas episode someday. So I was able to move
Don't
on.
give it
from that
away.
one. At least I could narrow it down from there. But I'm looking at the movies Big, Beetlejuice, Coming to America. I brought up in our draft License to Drive, which would just be a fun movie to sit and talk about. Gifford, you're going to pick Bull Durham, which I could have picked. There's just so many. I could have picked A Very Brady Christmas and really tortured you guys. There's just so many great movies from that year. And I finally settled on A Fish Called Wanda, which is as good as any of them. And I picked this one because when I was looking at the list, I felt like it was maybe the more underappreciated option of those. Like, I think our casual listener, however many there are out there,
A little bit like LA Story in that regard.
might
is
know
what I
this one a
felt.
little bit less than some of the others because it doesn't. I mean, at the time, maybe it was huge, but I don't know that it is as well known anymore as some of the others. But excuse me for a minute. My dog is causing a large problem, and it's really annoying me.
That's all right.
It's all right.
Why don't you take care of that? We'll kind of take over from there. Well, I just wanted to bring up kind of an interesting thought on this, as Brad was talking about how popular the movie was. So this had a budget of only $7.5 million, but raked in just shy of $189 million in the box office. And
where did that from?
Right off of Wikipedia.
Oh, on IMDb it said 63 million, which I thought seemed small.
Well, and this may be a reason why. It was released wide in the U.S. in July 15th, but then it was released in the U.K. in October, 3 months later, which is crazy.
So you're talking, you're talking pounds or euros or something.
Well, and not only that, but this movie takes place in England, for crying out loud.
Well, that's true.
I think it would have had would have been released around the same time.
And that's where the IMDb thing really confused me, because it said 63 million US and Canada, and then worldwide it said 63 million still. And I'm like, well, this obviously made money in England.
Right.
So they must have, I don't know why it was like that.
Yeah. So that's a 3 month delay. Right. Yeah, 3 month delay in from the UK to the US there. And so yeah, I mean that's I'd say that's a pretty profitable movie for,
But so anyway, when I said underappreciated, I mean, it's weird to say because it made that much money. It has a 96% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and 84% from fans. Mm-hmm. And it was actually nominated. I knew about the one Oscar because we're going to talk about that a lot. But it was nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Director for a comedy and also Best Screenplay. And then Kevin Kline, of course, won Best Supporting Actor.
Well deserved.
And but this gets to the point we've talked about. How did this movie get all these awards or nominated? And like none of these other comedies ever do. It's like, what was so special that actually like caught on with the awards folk compared to
how was he supporting actor? Because I would have considered him the lead actor in this movie.
Oh, no,
I don't think they're. Well, John Cleese.
I mean, but it's an ensemble, and so it's hard to say who the lead character is.
So they put him up for supporting actor.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the first one I think of when I think of this movie is Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
So that's me.
All right.
Well, for me, it's Jamie Lee Curtis is the first one I think of when I think of this movie, because she's in every scene. I mean, there's hardly a scene she's not in.
It's a very well-respected and well-regarded movie, but I just feel like you don't hear people talk about it very much. So that's part of why I ended up picking it. But also for me, it was like those other, big Tom Hanks. Everybody knows Tom Hanks, Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton, Coming to America, Eddie Murphy. This was a movie that kind of introduced me to kind of more of a different kind of a humor. Because like last week we talked about The Naked Gun and the screwball comedies and how for Pete and me, that was like the big movie that really took us into that. Just being set in England and the English humor and some of these Monty Python people, like this is where I really got introduced to a lot of that. So it stood out for that. I watched it for the first time on VHS. I don't really remember any other memories, like if I was with anybody or like what caused me the first time to get that one. But then I watched it over and over again, and then a bunch of my friends watched it. And this movie has more quotes than you would think that we still quote like to this day. There are so many great lines in this movie, starting with the great performance from Kevin Kline, who almost everything he says is great.
It's pure magic, yeah.
And I became a huge fan of him in this movie. He's one of my favorite actors. And he's a great example of what we've talked about, that comedy people should get more credit. And we're going to bring that up at the end of this episode. So anyway, it's a roundabout way of saying why I picked it and why I love this movie.
Well, this movie for me, it had a little bit of everything. Like, what kind of a movie are you looking for? It's like action. It's a heist movie. Yeah. It's got comedy. It's got sex in it. like, what more do you want? All of these different things, and like you said, you got this kind of European or English thing going, and it adds to the comedy. Don't underestimate how funny Otto is, and especially, and there's a couple of scenes.
Call him stupid.
Right. Well, there's a couple of scenes in here where it seemed like it was I don't want to say drawn out, because then it sounds like I got bored with it, but it's like extended comedy scenes where they're playing off each other so well. It's like you normally see on an onstage theater production in a comedy production, where there's just one thing going on over here and then somebody comes out of here, and it was just great in that way. And we'll talk about those scenes when we get to them, but there's two scenes in particular that I'm thinking of there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean when I say that? Do I make sense?
Yes, you're on
Okay,
it.
good.
I'm looking forward to your examples.
Yes.
Well, and for me, just again, great movie.
Damn it, Larry.
John Cleese always delivers. Just does such a great job. But watching this back, this is a movie that I do own. I'm pretty sure I own it because of Brad and his love for this movie. But watching it again, I talk about how when I watch a Steve Martin movie, how much Steve Martin reminds me of Brad. Kevin Kline is the same way. The mannerisms, the way that he acts, the way that he talks, reminds me of Brad a lot. And I haven't seen a movie with Kevin Kline in quite a while, because he hasn't, really done much lately.
Kind of disappeared.
But I watched a ton of stuff with him, in the 90s. And that just reminded me, as soon as he came on screen, I was like, oh yeah, this guy reminds me of Brad quite a bit. So absolutely great movie. And like Pete said, this has got, a little bit of everything in it. It's got some slapstick with Ken Stutter. It's got the sex appeal with Jamie Lee Curtis. It's got, the English humor with John Cleese. And it's got just the frenetic pace at which Kline's character acts and how he perceives the world and everything he does with his, full speed ahead all the time with everything he does. So
every scene just pulls you in.
Yeah. He steals every scene that he's in. And that's why he wins an Oscar for this, because
and the way you guys are talking too, you're talking about the way it's put together and directed, and like the guy got nominated for Best Director too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like, another thing, like Pete says, how it has a little bit of everything, like the end scene, somehow Otto is still with us after his run-in with Ken. So, and then of course you got all the craziness with the dogs and Ken, which is another great little sidebar in there, which is so funny to see. So a little bit of dark humor there. So yeah, it's a wonderful film.
This, by the way, I wanted to point out, and we'll get to it later, I'm sure, but this is the second week in a row where we've done a movie that ends with somebody getting run over by a steamroller.
Right.
We just need to add Austin Powers next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need Austin Powers in there, and we got it wrapped up.
All right. Well, I can start going through this if you're ready.
Hit it.
So it starts off with a lot of 80s music as we meet all the characters kind of one at a time. And for each character, the music changes slightly, which I don't know if you noticed all those little details.
One of Dave's favorite things in any movie.
But you meet John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and Michael Palin in that order. They each have their own little theme music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought this one it was unique. I had this written down, how great of a job they did at character introductions, all in about 2 seconds each. Right?
Yeah, they're
like
short.
Immediately you find out, okay, this guy loves animals. You find out, okay, Jamie Lee Curtis is some sort of a spy or whatever. She's like taking pictures. I don't want to say spy, but that's because that's not what she was. But you know what? What was it? Kevin Kline. He was like, he shot the phone or something.
Oh yeah, he's a weapons man.
Yep.
And John Cleese is the barrister or the lawyer.
Yep.
And so you find it sets it up so perfectly, all in about 10 seconds or less, like who all of these people are.
And then you got this first little gag right off the bat, and it's something so little that you could miss. So they walk into this apartment that a lot of it takes place in, and so Kevin Kline and Jamie Lee Curtis are supposed to be brother and sister to everybody else. Like they're in cahoots, but they're actually a couple. And the first thing Kevin Kline does when he walks in, he reaches over and grabs her tit.
Yeah, he got the cheap cop to feel. He cops to feel right.
And if you're not looking, like you totally miss it, and it's hilarious. And then he makes fun of Ken's stutter right off the bat. So you get a very quick introduction right away into the type of guy he is, which is not a very smart and not a very great guy, but funny.
Kind of a dick, really. Yeah.
Kind of. He's absolutely a dick. And I just love how he absolutely revels in Ken's stutter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not letting that go. And,
oh, you've got quite the stutter there, don't you?
Right. So it's, and that's obviously an ongoing thing. And something that, Ken, holds on to throughout this film of Otto making fun of him the whole time.
We also meet
the line that I had written down there was that got me was where she tells Otto, "Oh, you'll have to forgive him. He's had a hard life. His dad used to beat him up." And then he goes, "Good."
Yes.
We also meet John Cleese in a separate scene, and his wife and daughter, Wendy and Portia. And we learn right away that his wife is a total bitch to him and that they don't have much of a loving relationship, which is important because that sets up later.
Right. Well, and his daughter doesn't respect him either. Just both
he's
of them
kind of a sad sack.
Yeah, basically he's, provider, off at work all day long, and his daughter wants a different horse, and his wife hasn't had a moment to herself. Even though she's just a, socialite type character. And
they'll listen to a word he says about his day. They couldn't care less.
Right.
I had to look up, at risk of sounding ridiculous, I'm going to make this point, is that, and it wasn't the right actress, but you know who I thought it was at first, and I had to check and see if it was the same actress.
I'm interested because she looks kind of like somebody.
This is 40 years ago, this movie is, so it's somebody that you think of today as being a lot older.
Which character?
We're talking about John Cleese's wife.
Wendy. Okay, I didn't know if you're talking about his wife or his daughter. Okay.
I was like, is this the same actress that plays Mrs. McGonagall in Harry Potter?
Oh, wow. Interesting. I can see that.
That's what I know.
I can see
I thought it kind of looked like her, and it sounded a lot like her, is what I thought. But it's not, so it's kind of pointless.
Speaking of Portia, what I found is that she actually is John Cleese's daughter in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't look that up.
Really? I didn't know that till last night. I was looking over things again and just kind of put that together.
Well, and Wendy, her last name is Aiken, which is Courtney's maiden name.
Oh, really? Wow.
But they are of no relation. So.
All right. So now we're back at the flat, and Otto is listening to Wanda and Ken go over the plans, and Otto cannot keep up with things. Every time somebody goes into like a little bit of a longer detail, he's got to go like, "Can you repeat the part about the?" Or
he just doesn't know what's going on.
What's the middle part again?
It's not even that long of stuff. Like towards the end when they're at the ticket counter, I think it was, and they were giving options, and he's like, "What's the middle part again?" And it was like 3 options. So yeah, he can't listen and retain information very quickly or well at all, because he's very stupid, and he does not like being called.
But don't call him stupid.
Right.
Okay. Then we've got the actual robbery, which, this happens right off the bat. And they have George also as part of this. Another guy. He's kind of the fall guy. But in the robbery, you see that Otto is quite the marksman. And at the end of it, he has the bank guy put an apple on his head and pretends like he's going to shoot him with an arrow, but he doesn't actually do that. So they get out of there. And during the escape part, we also meet the old lady who you mentioned, Gifford, who has 3 little dogs that she's always out running around with, and she loves these dogs. Everything goes smoothly in the heist until they almost run over this lady and her dogs. They end up in a very small little garage, and they put the loot in there, and then they all kind of go their separate ways.
But importantly, the the old lady got a good look at the
Oh,
at the
George.
people.
George.
Right.
Yeah, and George, we
right,
do
right.
see sneak back in after they leave, and actually, we will find out he takes the loot and he's going to move it somewhere else, but nobody else is supposed to know that.
Right.
We also get one of Kevin Kline's repeated lines. So he says, "Don't call me stupid" all the time, but now we see them drive away, and he's always on the wrong side of the road. And every time he comes close to hitting somebody, he yells out,
"Asshole!"
I thought you would do that.
Okay. Yeah, and he usually gets run into just a little bit.
Well, it's always his
Yeah.
fault. He has no idea what
Yes.
he's doing.
Right. Yes, it's all those pompous British people, that he keeps talking about.
you
They
think
don't know
you're
anything.
so superior.
Mhm.
So Otto and Wanda eventually go back to get the loot, and we
This is
can
the
start to
best part.
see that they're not as close as they claim, because as he is about to open the safe, she's got a big wrench above his head and she's going to knock him out. So they're not really a team. But he's got a
Everyone's in
great
it for
line here where
themselves.
he says to her before he opens the safe, "These last 2 weeks with me have been the most exciting weeks of your life."
And
as
then
he's
we
saying that, she's ready to basically kill him.
get I think it may be my favorite part of the entire movie when he opens the safe
Oh, yes.
and his
So
line.
it's not there.
Yes, and
Well,
he has his line of "disappointed," and then turns around, walks over to the car, kicks it, and then the way he jumps and hits the top of the car at the same
Yes.
time.
Well, and his legs, it's like a
Yeah.
scissor, like his legs separate as he's pounding down on it.
Well, didn't he shoot the safe like a bunch
Yes.
of the empty
After
safe?
that,
He
he does,
shoots
yeah.
it, which doesn't make any sense at all. Why the hell would you do
No,
that? That would be
'cause
really
he's
dangerous for one
stupid.
thing.
But I think you're right, Gif. That scene might be what won him the Oscar, because the physical reaction to that is incredible.
Because when he goes over to the car the first time, he kicks it.
Yeah.
That's a normal kind of mad
He
reaction.
taps it and he kicks it, and then
But
he does that.
But when he does the jump and hit the top of the car at the same time, it's so wonderful. And it's not a power move, I mean, it just shows how
It's kind of a dainty tap.
it's a very dainty move, yes.
It's
So
more like a
good.
ballet move with the legs kicking out. But I love, and that's a great line to repeat. Disappointed.
So this show, I believe it has drops used on the morning show, and then I also think on Barrero's show.
Yes,
The
there was
Disappointed
one,
is on the morning show, and then
Oh, really?
there's
I've never
the
heard that.
"You Are a True Vulgarian, Aren't You?" I think is used on
Yes.
Barrero quite a bit.
Huh.
Yeah,
I guess I've
I
never
picked that up.
Yeah.
never noticed that.
Yeah. So
I don't listen to him much anyway anymore, but
But that "Disappointed" is such a great line, the way he yells it.
so she doesn't knock him out because there is no loot. So now they have to figure out what to do next. So she hides the wrench back in her pocket.
Well, and even before this, they had called the police to give an anonymous tip to rat out George. So the idea
Before
is
they go to steal the loot, they turn him in and rat him out.
yes. So now George is in custody, and their whole plan is, okay, now we'll get the loot and we'll leave and we're good to go. So
I love that man. But then they go out and they find John Cleese out there, and they realize that's George's lawyer. So now they've got some new plans, and Wanda goes to visit him in jail, and she starts to grease the wheels there on how she can get information out of him, and she's very sexual, and she's she's
All she does the whole movie is she's seducing people to get what she wants.
Yes.
and
let's just put this out right now. So you guys, you must be, Gifford, I know you. Are you attracted to her?
I think she is.
I have just never been, ever.
Her face is very attractive, very pretty.
I just don't.
And I mean, and then she's got the rest of it to go along with it. But I was watching this and I was thinking to me, she is very attractive.
It's just so interesting.
I'm with Gifford. I'm with
people
Gifford on this one. And
because,
in True Lies too, she's also pretty attractive.
Yeah,
I like her
in the dance scene.
Yes, the dance scene's very good. Well,
Trading Places is one of my favorite movies, and she's great in that too.
Yes, she is. But I think she has that she carries that sexuality very well in a manner that, you can totally believe how she is conning all three of these men, using her wiles that she has, like it's believable for sure.
I guess she's just not my type. And you know what?
Yep.
I'm probably not hers either. So
no, yes, yeah. I'm sure I'm not her type either. That's for sure. I'm
what
thinking
is this?
she's more
Hump a Limey week?
Oh yeah, that's coming up
Christopher
here.
Guest type is what I'm going with.
So Wanda then goes to talk to Archie out by a car later, and she gets his autograph because she doesn't know his name, and so she's acting like she knows him from somewhere, and she gets him to say his name, and then she gets his autograph. So again, the whole thing is just a setup to figure out who he is.
Well, and the other great thing about this movie is that you have this dynamic duo, if you will, of Otto and Wanda. And Otto is dumb as a rock. And Wanda is very clever. She thinks on her feet very well. She knows how to play somebody.
Do you buy that those two would be like together in the first place? Because I don't really see.
Well, I think he's a means to an end. He is the marksman that they needed to break into the bank. So I think she just used him.
But it seemed like they had more of a history before that already. Like they've been together.
Well, he said 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks for you have been the best 2 weeks of your life. I think they've only been together that long.
All right.
Yeah.
The next thing I have down here is hello, Ken's pets. So he's back at the flat. And this is where, Pete, your line, this is another great line. He learns that Wanda's like out hitting on this other guy, and he's like, what is this, hump a limey week? But then we learn about his Italian. Yes. So in order to try to turn on Wanda, Otto speaks Italian, but a lot of it's just like mozzarella, parmesan, gorgonzola,
Benito Mussolini.
Right.
Yeah, and she starts to get into it, but they get interrupted, so nothing happens at this point here. But we can see she's got to tell that he can try to use.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it turns out, pretty much any foreign language gets her going between Italian or Russian. Later. Russian has the same effect.
So they get interrupted because Ken returns home, and she sees him move the key, which was in a treasure chest, or into the treasure chest in the tank. So she's peeking around the corner. So now she knows where this key is that she can use to try to. She doesn't know where the loot is, but she can take the key and then try to figure it out.
This is a key to a safe deposit box that George moved the loot to. Yeah, so they don't know where that's at. So that's the next play, is to figure out where the loot is. She has the key, but they have to keep this ruse going in order to figure that out.
It's just another classic scene. So Otto is all confused, or not Otto. Ken is all confused because he hears Otto is there, and he walks into the other bedroom and he sees Otto is sitting on the toilet, but he's got his pants up. He's just sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
And he gets up and he flushes the toilet. And he says to Ken, when I find the bastard who squealed, I love that man.
Well, and of course, he needs to come up with a way, because Ken's not stupid. He's got to figure out a way to, because Ken's like, why are these two here together in the bedroom? She was in the shower. That doesn't make sense. So Otto needs to come up with a way to.
So Otto, thinking fast, takes Ken out into the hallway, and he says, "You've got wonderful bones, great eyes, and you dress really interestingly."
Really interesting.
And he tries to kiss him, and he's basically telling Otto that he's gay and he's in love with him. Mm-hmm. But he's doing this, and while he's doing this, Wanda is able to retrieve the key that she just saw put in the tank.
So this may be the smartest thing that Otto does the entire movie.
Well, but he doesn't know about the key. Oh, you're just about to distract Ken.
To distract Ken and get him off the thought of these two aren't brother and sister.
Yeah. Plus, it works out well that Wanda can get the key, although Otto doesn't know that that's happening.
Exactly. He's just trying to, make a new story up. So that was actually pretty smart for him, but other than that, he's a dolt the rest of the show.
Another great line. Ken and Otto walk back in after this near kiss, and Wanda's faking like she's on the phone, and she goes, "Ken, somebody just called. She doesn't say who it is
They're always
or what.
they're over exaggerating, like they have to shout at each other, like what the point that they want the person in the next room to know. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm going to leave now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
this was
by doing this, they get George to admit that he doesn't, or not, Ken doesn't know where it is, but he knows that George moved the loot. And so they get that, and now they're going to try to get the information eventually out of him.
See, I thought Ken did know, and she cut him off before he told her.
No, he didn't know where it was.
Okay.
He knows that he moved it, but he doesn't know
Yep.
where it is. And after she kisses him, he loses his stutter for a second. He's
Yep.
all relaxed, and he says, I don't know where it is. I know there's a key. And then he's
Oh.
going to tell her where the key is, and that's when she shushes him.
Oh,
Because she already
that's
has the
what it
key,
was.
so it doesn't
She
matter.
already knew, and then that
Yep.
way he wouldn't suspect that she
Yeah.
was the one that stole it.
Yeah.
Right. I missed that part. Okay.
I love that, man. So the old lady with the dogs now picks George out of a lineup, and so that's how George gets fingered and is now going to be stuck in jail for the time being, at least. Wanda is back at Archie's office, and she drops George's name because she's trying to get information. But they're having this nice conversation, but then he tells her she has to leave because it's unethical and he can't talk to her about the case because he's a lawyer. But she keeps at him and she keeps working on him. And she brings out the big guns.
Well, and also George tells Ken that he needs to knock off this old lady so that she can't testify.
Yes.
Right.
So that sets
Ken
him
has
to,
been given the task to rub her out.
right. So that sets off this whole side story that I absolutely love of Ken trying to kill this old woman.
And Ken being an animal lover, and
Mhm.
of course we'll get to all this as it goes.
Yes.
I bet you £1 you won't kill her.
Right.
Pound. Otto is practicing martial arts, we see now, and Wanda comes to tell him everything she found out, and he's just acting like she's not even there, and she's having a conversation. Thank you, Wanda, she says. And but then this is a great scene now because it cuts back and forth. So we cut to Portia complaining back in what's his name?
Archie's house.
Archie's house, John Cleese. And so we can see he's going through again. Nobody, just nothing good happening there. We cut back. Otto is now speaking Italian again, and he has more time. And he's getting her all turned on. Then we see Archie and his wife, just the most boring couple ever. They have separate beds. They're cutting their toenails and picking dead skin off. While this is going on, we cut back, and he's got Wanda on her back, legs up. He takes off these big boots, and he's breathing into the boot.
The boot scene.
What the?
He's
Like, that doesn't
inflating
make any
her
sense.
boot and like sniffing it.
That's the word. But then he
Yeah.
flips it back and forth across his shoulders, which is just a great move. And that's when he says, Benito Mussolini. And then as he is having his big moment, he yells, Volare.
Volare.
And his eyes go crossed, and
That would be
they've
the old
completed.
face.
Oh, that was perfect.
Yes.
And then Archie mistakenly calls his wife Wanda before he goes to sleep because it sounds like Wendy, so he kind of gets away with it, but we can see where his mind is at. So it's a great one of those back and forth contrasting scenes. Again, so there's your director doing a great job with that.
Yep.
Okay, now we're in court, and we see George sneak something off to Ken, and Otto calls Ken Hun out in the street because he saw him take this little thing.
No, yep.
And so he realizes that Ken is going to have to rub out the old lady, and he can't believe it. He's laughing at him. That's when he bets him £1 that he won't do it. But then as Ken is leaving, he says, I love watching your ass when you walk. And he's yelling, don't go near him. He's mine.
Well, and what I like is there's a guy in the background, like looking towards Ken, like wondering why this man is, so impressed with this guy walking away.
All right. Wanda then is in disguise trying to get Archie to call her. And she is promising, what's the word you like to use, Gif?
The whoopee.
The whoopee. There you go. So she basically promises that to him if they'll meet, and she's working him hard, and he is giving in quite easily. Otto drives Wanda to Archie's house that night, and he's very jealous because she's hinting that she might do stuff with him, and they get into some details too about nuzzling and what is or isn't allowed. And
yeah, he's not allowed. She's not allowed to touch his penis.
Touch his dick, and he's dead. The wife and the daughter were leaving for an opera, but the car gets a flat. So we see that, and we see, well, they're not going to be gone probably as long as planned, which is setting up, we got this big, one of these great scenes in a comedy where all these people it's just frantic, everybody who's not supposed to be there trying to stay away from each other and hide coming up.
This is the main scene that I was referring to earlier.
Okay.
When I said this is sort of like it could be an on-stage theatrical.
Yes. Yeah, it is like a theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great description.
Thank you.
So Wanda shows up to the house, and they just start making out right away, and Otto's outside watching. But then all of a sudden we see Otto is actually inside, like just a few feet away from them. And
watching them make out.
He's always right outside
Archie
the window.
is guzzling.
Mm-hmm.
He pokes his head up and surprises them. Everybody's hiding now behind doors because the wife and Portia return. Archie shows up with champagne that was supposed to be for him and Wanda. So he has to pretend it was actually for his wife. But she sees a car out front, so she's confused. There's all just
all those little things going on and people hiding. And
Otto comes out, pretends to be from the CIA. It's a ridiculous story, and she calls him stupid, and that's where he says, "Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?"
Well, what I love about this scene is Archie has not seen Otto come into the house, only Wanda.
That's
so
true.
Archie
I was
goes
thinking
behind,
that he popped up.
Archie goes behind Otto goes behind a door to kind of hide from everybody. And when his wife starts asking Archie about why is the car out there, suddenly Otto shows up and starts telling this ridiculous story. And John Cleese is just standing there completely dumbfounded with this look on his face. I honestly have no idea, because Otto's saying, I was checking around the area, so I was talking to your husband, and so
he's just been handed an out, and so he just has to take it.
Right, he has no clue, and he's just so happy that his wife hasn't seen this woman that is in their house that he was just making out with. So he's gonna go along with whatever to get out of his little pitch. So in the meantime, while they were making out, Wanda and Archie, Wanda's necklace has fallen off her neck, and that necklace has a locket on it, and in that locket is the key to the safety deposit box. So
yes, so it's very important that she gets that back.
Right, because Portia picks up that necklace, and Wendy thinks it's for her, and says it's the greatest present that Archie's ever given her, and she absolutely loves it. So she's
very similar to Love Actually, where she thinks she's getting the necklace, and it turns out to be the Joni Mitchell CD.
That's correct.
So I just said this whole scene is just your classic case of misdirection and ins and outs. It's kind of like in a cartoon where people are behind doors, and they keep opening a door and they show up somewhere else, and then they show up over here, and
they're everywhere.
Or like the Three Amigos.
Clue is what jumped into my mind. The movie.
Yeah,
Clue.
kind of like yes, it is a lot like Clue. So we then cut to Wanda and Otto are leaving in the yard, but the necklace is still up there, so that's a problem. The next morning, Archie gets a phone call, clearly from Wanda about the necklace, and he says that he can't get it right now, but she's not gonna give up. So Ken is in the back of a van with a bunch of big dogs, like Dobermans, and he's going to sick these dogs on the old lady, and that's how he's going to get her. But the dogs get out of the van, and instead of the old lady, it just picks up one of these little dogs and just takes off running with it and kills it.
Because remember how much he loves animals.
Yeah. Yes, so then there's a dog funeral, and Ken is back in the background watching and crying because he can't believe what's happened.
As an animal lover, you don't think he would understand that a big dog is going to scoop up a little dog and kill it?
Ken might be smart, but that plan probably wasn't.
That plan was absolutely brutal, and his subsequent plans aren't much better, but they're just—it's so great, it's so funny.
Okay, now we got Otto back at the flat, and he finds this letter about Archie meeting Wanda, which again instantly makes him jealous. But he's reading it, and she walks in, and he's reading it, and he has to change. He goes, to be honest, I hate them. To try to cover up what he was saying, and like he doesn't know, because so he's going to be spying on them, but he doesn't want her to know that he found this letter.
Right.
So Wendy will not give up the necklace to Archie. We'll get back to that in a minute. Archie's got a pretty dumb plan too. Archie and Wanda are now at the meeting place, and Otto is again right outside the window using a stethoscope to try to hear through the window. And they're talking about how dumb he is while he's inside again. And this is where he pops
she's being
up
very deliberate about it.
and scares both of them right to their face and says, "Don't call me stupid."
Right.
And then he goes crazy and he forces Archie to apologize. And we see that he's actually hanging him outside a window upside down by his legs.
Yes.
And Archie gives this great,
Oh, it was a wonderful,
but very well worded and,
It's very lawyerly because he's a lawyer.
very proper. Yes. Yes.
But actually, before, when he told him to apologize the first time, I love Archie's line, "Are you totally deranged?"
Deranged?
Well, and this is the scene where Archie calls Otto you are a true Vulgarian, aren't you?
Oh, this is it right here.
Yes.
Yeah, where he's hanging him over the...
Yeah. So, and this is also the scene where Archie is telling Wanda, I really can't get this locket back. There's no way I'm going to get this necklace. While Wanda comes right back at him and says, I can only have sex with somebody that I can trust. So she's using the sex angle again to continue to push him to get this thing back. And of course, Archie is completely infatuated with her. And so he that's the impetus he needs to get this necklace back.
Now we see Ken again, who's wearing like a Rastafarian dreadlock hat. And this time he tries to run over the old lady in a car, but instead, of course, gets a dog.
Flattens it right on the crosswalk.
2 of the dogs are gone, and they've both been killed. Basically, he's responsible for both. Wanda tells Otto off for his stupidity, and she actually convinces him to apologize back to Archie for what he's done. So he's going to go back, but I love that while he's preparing, he hears someone break. So he's sitting in the driveway, like, what's he going to say? And he's having a hard time with it. But he hears someone break in.
He can't get out the word apologize. He's talking to himself about how he's going to apologize. But when it comes time to say, I apologize, it won't come out of his mouth.
He hears somebody break into Archie's house. So he's going to be the hero. And he goes in and he catches this guy and he's like, this is great. And it turns out it's Archie. Archie's fake stealing his own house so that he can get the necklace back because it's the only way he knows how. And Archie, of course, freaks out when he sees Otto because he thinks he's really there to like get him and to kill him because Otto's crazy. Mm-hmm. And then Otto starts kicking him when he realizes
he puts a blanket
who he is,
over him.
Because he's so mad at Archie for being so stupid that instead of he just starts kicking him.
And he keeps going, I'm sorry, as he finally figures out this is not why I'm here. But he's such a dolt that, his emotions always get the best of him. And so he always acts out on those. And so he's apologizing while he's kicking the crap out of him. And
So Archie is like passed out on the floor and Wendy comes home and he hears her and he's all tied up. But he is able to get the necklace into his mouth. And then he just takes off and leaves. After she sees the house has been robbed and he's been hurt, she's like all concerned. But he just gets up and runs out of there like it's no big deal. And
I got a conference
to go to. I forgot I have a meeting. I'm late for a meeting. So he takes off. And of course, his meeting is with Wanda back at this flat that he's like using while somebody's away.
So he returns the necklace through a kiss because it was in his mouth. Which is kind of weird. But she's all happy, of course. And she asks if he speaks any other languages, and he doesn't really like Italian, so he starts speaking Russian, and we find out that actually really makes she's writhing on the ground.
Grabbing,
getting naked, and he's dancing around, and he's just drops his underwear, and this family walks into the house. And he's standing right in front of him. And it takes him a while, but then he grabs a picture and puts it in front of his groin, and it's a picture of the wife who just walked in.
Yep. And these people end up knowing him because they're the people that he bought his house from.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it was another case of
Yep.
mistaken where he somehow got promised to both of them at the same time, and the people were supposed to be there, but he thought he was too. And
well, no, he just knew that the person who owned it was in Hong Kong, so he knew that nobody was going to be there, and it was like, lent out to this other family, and of course now he's standing buck naked in the living room, and this whole family walks in and sees him,
and so
dancing around and talking.
While that's going on, she sneaks out because it's over there. And Archie is just basically gives up, and he calls her and breaks up with her over the phone like that it's not going to work and it's not going to happen.
Right.
Then he gets home and he's sad, of course, and Otto meets him again because he's going to apologize, but he's holding a gun to him to try to make him listen. And then we see Wendy can overhear this from the window above, and these are the two lines that we used to love to say all the time. And he's like, "Go ahead, pork away, pal. Fucker blue."
Fucker blue.
And so now Wendy knows what's going on too, and that there's this other woman, and it's just all messed up. And poor Archie, he just can't do anything right. All right, we're back to Ken. He now looks like Lee Harvey Oswald. He's got a rifle. He's up in a big window, but instead of just shooting the lady,
right,
he shoots a hanging safe, and he shoots
it's
the
like
rope
something from a
it
Bugs
up.
Bunny cartoon.
Yeah,
right.
It's like a
Wile E. Coyote.
And so he's going to hit this little rope, and it's going to cause the safe to fall, and he's going to do it just perfectly, so it's going to land on her, I guess.
That
I
way
guess he
looks
wants
like
it
an
to look like
accident.
an accident, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. That made
But
sense.
still. Of course, it falls and kills the last dog, and all the dogs are gone. However, when he goes down to inspect, she's also dead. She had a heart attack because she's so upset and sad about all three dogs dying.
Yeah.
And instead of being sad about the dogs, he actually starts laughing hysterically because he's so happy that she's dead, because that was his job. So Ken's got sides. He goes to tell George, and here's another great line you can use every day. Unbe-fucking-leavable. And he tells Ken the new plan, and they need to meet at the Cathcart Towers Hotel. Ken goes to tell Otto that he owes him £1. Granny is dead. And he gives away where the loot is as he's doing this, though.
Right.
So Otto ties him up and starts to question him. And he puts a couple of chips, which are big French fries to us, up his nose so he can't breathe through his nose. And he's torturing him, and he's got the fish there, and he starts to eat the fish one at a time to try to get Otto or Ken to talk. He stuffs a pear in his mouth with the fries, so he literally cannot breathe.
It's like a
It
ball
looks so
gag.
bad. But he does finally leave, and then who comes in and helps?
Well, so what Otto is looking for is the key. He doesn't know Wanda has the key. Wanda hasn't told him he has the key, right?
Right.
Yeah, I can't remember why he left.
Well, because Ken finally tells him where the key is, and it's in the
but
treasure,
it's not in there.
But it's not in there.
Yeah.
So, why does Otto decide to leave?
I think he heard. Did she call? He leaves because of whatever.
Yeah, I think. Yes, she has the key. They talk. She has the key. He knows where it's at, so they're gonna go get it taken care of.
We then see Archie questioning Wanda in court, and he blows it because he calls her Wanda and gets upset. And then George realizes what's going on, who's in the stand, and George gets up and chases after her. Wendy hits him, and says, Wendy hits Archie and says, "You can stick this marriage right on your bottom," after the coat clears. Well, he doesn't even care. He just leaves to go see George. But there's this whole fiasco in the court where everything goes nuts.
Well, and the order of things is Wanda finds out that Otto knows where the loot is. She has the key, so now she is on the stand for George, and she can turn on him, and basically, because she's his alibi for the robbery. So she's supposed to testify that George was with her the whole morning, so he couldn't have done the robbery.
And that's what Archie is expecting her to say, and then
Yep.
she goes
Right.
opposite.
Yep.
And she goes opposite because now she doesn't need Archie or George anymore, so she's gonna bury Archie or
So
George.
Archie goes to see George, and there's cops there by the door, and George goes, "You told those pigs to fuck off." And John Cleese turns around and goes, "Fuck off, pigs.
Fuck off, pigs.
Did you hear what I said? Fuck off, pigs."
Pigs.
Then they leave. George is just, or Archie's done at this point. He'll say anything to anybody. So George won't tell him where the diamonds are. And Archie goes to see Ken at the flat. And he walks in and takes the pear out of his mouth.
Right.
And saves him. But he needs Ken to tell him where this is. And Ken's stutter is in high
Now this
mode. And he
this
can't
is the other
speak.
this is the other scene that stands out.
Yeah,
as
So
and this
one of
is
the funniest
another.
scenes
We say this all the
ever.
time. Can you sing it? The car.
The car. The car.
And he finally gets him to write it down, and Archie reads it, Cathcart Towers Hotel. And then right after that, Ken goes, Cathcart
Yeah.
Towers Hotel.
Yes, the Cathcart Towers Hotel. And then he looks at the camera
Yeah.
and gives a look like, "Oh, how did I do that?" It's just hilarious.
But he's doing a whole airport meme,
Because
And,
he's
like-
like flying around trying to
He's
get
like,
to
tell
the
him it's by the
like,
airport.
Where are the Cathcart Towers? And so he's like, so he's now.
And why
oh, no,
didn't he
he's
just
gonna-
write it down in the first place?
Exactly.
But it's
That's
much
what I
funnier
kept
that way.
saying.
So,
So Otto steals the car, and when he steals Wanda and the car when Archie goes inside. Archie then is questioning Ken, and that's where we get all this. So Otto and Wanda now arrive at the airport. She does knock him out this time, so she can go off on her own. And then we see Ken getting put through the luggage carousel, kind of a la Kramer on Seinfeld.
yes.
Yep.
Anyway, Archie ends up with Otto's gun because Otto puts it down because they're gonna fight, and they have this whole or no, it's not like that, sorry. Otto threatens to fight him, and Archie's the dumb one who puts his gun down, and as soon as he does, Otto picks it up and points it at him.
Right.
Makes Archie get into a barrel of like oil or just waste of some
They're
kind.
outside close to the terminal.
Yeah,
here,
they're out
so,
by the planes now.
Yep.
So anyway,
Ken-
and go ahead.
Ken has now commandeered a
Like a road
steamroller.
grader, yeah, like a with the big flat
Yeah.
wheel in front.
Yes. So
that's a
we've got-
steamroller, Brad.
We've got Archie standing in a barrel of oil. We've got Otto holding a gun on him. And of course, he's got his back to the steamroller and Ken coming at him.
Archie can
Archie's-
see Ken.
Archie's trying to distract Otto
Stall
and
him.
tell him how stupid Americans are, and just
Bringing
so
up Vietnam.
yep, yeah. So
We kicked your ass real good.
and of course
Not
this is
we,
all
they.
all being done kind of in a construction zone, where there's wet cement. So Otto now turns around, sees Ken coming, laughs because the steamroller moves extremely slow. And but he
Ken coming to kill me.
Kill me.
But as he's
So-
laughing, he backs up and he steps in wet cement, and his feet end up getting caught and stuck in the cement,
This is
so
right.
he can't move now.
This is another scene that you might see in a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yep.
Just like
It's very-
earlier, you had the safe drop on. This is something that would happen in one of those cartoons.
well,
A
and
lot
if
of these kind of scenes would fit into what we talked about last week in like screwball comedies, but I don't think
this scene in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah, I wouldn't call
No.
it that, but
So Otto,
You're right.
not smart enough again to just step out of his shoes that are stuck in cement and get out of there. Shoots at Ken
oh, that would have worked. I would've
on
never
the
thought of it.
steamroller, and
Archie's
Ken,
able to get out of the big bucket and
Yep.
get on his way.
Yep, and he gets onto the plane, and
Somehow
Ken
ends
is
up
able-
on the plane next to Wanda, which how he would even get there, that you got to suspend your belief for all that.
Well, and you have to
But
suspend
you got to
your
suspend
belief
it even more in a minute here.
for Ken running over Otto on this steamroller, and of course, as he's doing this, he's like yelling, and he
Revenge!
realizes now that his stutter is gone, and he can speak clearly because he's just dispatched Otto, and so everything is good. That way, you assume Otto is dead because he just
But
got run
he's
over.
in cement, so he's not buried.
He could just
Yep.
get out of
So
that.
we
So
see
we got
Archie and Wanda on the plane, and all of a sudden, a dripping wet cement covered Otto is like on the wing outside there. He not only does he know what plane they're on, he finds their seats, which side of the plane,
right at the wing.
They
and he's
happen to
looking
be
in
sitting
the
over wing.
window.
Yep.
And as the plane takes off, he falls off and he yells just like in the car, "Asshole!"
Assholes.
And
Yes.
so he probably still didn't die.
Well, he did because we have the
But
postscript,
falling off the plane could have been a real problem too.
but it wasn't because
Not if he's not that.
Oh, you're
if
right,
the
you're
plane
right, you're
wasn't really in the air.
Yep. So they
That's
do have
also
a.
kind of like a Seinfeld too, though, because didn't Kramer did that in that one episode where he's out on the
He
out on
was
the tarmac
running.
running alongside
Yes.
the
Yeah,
plane.
yeah.
So there is a postscript to this as the plane flies into the sky
And
before the credits
I forgot
roll.
about this postscript, and to me, this almost ruined. This is the worst part of the movie,
Yeah.
like by far.
But
These
it's
are
very
so dumb.
80s. It's a very
I
80s way
guess.
to wrap up a movie. Wanda and Archie are like in
They
Buenos
had
Aires.
17 kids and opened a
Yep.
leper colony. I mean,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, and Otto is
Yeah.
now like the Minister of Defense in some African
Minister
nation.
of Justice for South
Justice.
Africa.
Yeah.
Ken is
And
the master of ceremonies at SeaWorld.
a
Which is
speaking
kind of
role.
ironic because of the hit SeaWorld has taken and their stance on animals.
Yes.
So.
And
Well,
the
back
fact that-
then, nobody knew about that.
No, I
so
know,
it
but
fit.
I'm saying, looking at it.
Yes.
And I just thought those three were like the dumbest part of the movie, and it kind of left me with this bad taste. But I got over it because the rest of the
It's
movie's so
fine.
great.
Oh, it is, yeah. For sure.
But it's like if you're going to put these postscripts in, can't you come up with something better?
Yeah, it would have
It's
been
such
yeah,
a
you'd think-
well-written and smart movie. I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of
it
a
doesn't
dumb
fit.
little thing.
I feel like it's out of place.
Well, and the fact that you've got Otto on the outside of the plane at the end, like he could have just been dead. Like, I mean, it's okay for him to be dead at the end of the movie, you know. I mean, if you're fine killing 3 little dogs in various
That's true.
ways, you can kill off a stupid idiot in your movie as well.
All right, so Kevin Kline won a Best Supporting Actor Academy Award for this, and we talked way back to our Vacation series in our first season about Chevy Chase in the movie Vacation and Christmas Vacation for that matter, and how nobody would ever say this, but I brought it up. Like he was so good in Vacation for that particular role. Like I wasn't even that not serious. He could have been nominated for an Academy Award, in my opinion, because he's so good at that role, the role that the movie
You're
called for.
accomplishing the goal of what you're trying to accomplish.
And so rarely do actors in comedies get credit. And so it's so awesome that Kevin Kline won an Oscar, not just nominated, but actually won an Oscar for this performance. And so as I was putting this together here, I'm like, well, this is the perfect night to talk about something, because we brought it up like 5 times throughout the run of our show here about great comedic performances and just not getting enough credit. So we're going to finish this off by talking about what we found were some of the most award-worthy comedy performances. So in our opinion, maybe they were nominated for an award, maybe they weren't, maybe they should have been. And so, but comedy actors in comedy movies that we think should have been more recognized or should get more credit.
Sure.
So I'll probably go last, I guess. You guys can go first.
I
Pete,
can
what'd you
start.
come up with?
I'm going to start from the bottom. It's one that actually was recognized that you wouldn't typically think would be recognized for this kind of a role. I put Marissa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny.
Oh yeah, that's another one.
More of a
She won
comedy
too.
role. She actually did win an Oscar.
And people still
she
claim
wasn't
that was a big
supposed to,
hoax.
but
That was a
but
big
still,
what?
I mean,
Like that it was that she
Exactly.
didn't really
It was a
win, that
hoax.
there was a mistake, and that it
Oh,
was.
come
and then they
on.
just let it go. Yeah.
Oh, that was great. She was
But see, that's the
awesome
thing.
in that.
Somebody actually wins one,
She
and then
was.
they talk about how she didn't deserve it, or it was a mistake, and so.
Well, anybody
Either
who
way-
says that should watch it again because she was amazing in that.
Either way, she was nominated. So whatever you think of if she should have won the award or not, she was worthy of it. So that's what I had as my number 5. My number 4, I have Jim Carrey in The Truman Show.
Yes.
Very good pick there. Yeah.
That's my number 1, by the way.
Oh, it is. Okay. My number 3 is Bill Murray in Groundhog Day.
Nice.
Very good.
My number 2, Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
And
yeah.
And my number 1 was John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, you went John Candy. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because I thought
I agree.
Steve Martin was great, but it was John Candy's role that just makes you cry at the end.
Mhm.
I mean, it was his specific shot, that one last shot at the Thanksgiving dinner, when, he can tell that he's in a comfortable place now with these people, even if it's only for a short time. That one shot just gets you every time.
Yes,
I am so glad you brought that one up because somehow that one completely missed me. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But I would put John Candy. You could put both of them on there.
Yep.
But I've
You
actually
could.
brought up John Candy before and how he was worthy of some sort of recognition for that movie in particular.
See, and
Yes.
I love that you went that way, Pete. In my honorable mentions, I have Steve Martin for that movie as well.
Okay. They're both great. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's such a
They're
perfect
both good.
buddy comedy, and they both play the roles exactly the way you need to.
Sure.
They do. It's just, to me, John Candy was a little bit more emotional,
A little more
and
depth.
tugs at your heartstrings, more in line with what you might typically see with an Oscar-winning performance.
Sure. Well, I can go next here. I've got my top 5, and I've got a few honorable mentions besides, but I'll stick with my top 5 to start. I'm going to go number 5. I'm going Melissa McCarthy and Bridesmaids.
Mhm.
I think when you just because of the unbelievable scene stealing ability in that movie is great. There's a lot of great performances in it, but I think hers is the strongest. And for me, the most memorable scenes are hers in that movie. My number 4 is going to be W. Earl Brown. He plays Warren in There's Something About Mary. Now you laugh, but my reason for this is twofold. Again, you think about that movie and
About 10 times 10.
exactly, you know the lines. Have you seen my wiener? Frank said beans. Like he's got
Yeah.
the most, the best lines from that movie. And my other reason is you've got other actors in serious roles playing mentally disabled characters. I Am Sam, Sean Penn, nominated. Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton, nominated. Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman, won an Oscar. Why can't you have the same thing
Good
as a
point.
comedy?
Yeah,
So
I guess.
I'm putting W.
Speaking
Earl
of
Brown-
that, I didn't have this done either, but and his is a more screwball role than any of these really. But Matt Dillon in that movie,
Oh, he's.
That
Oh
is
yeah.
that is a top notch performance.
Did I say spark plug? I meant butt plug. I mean,
Ooh, roller pig?
he's so good in that.
She took a job with the Rice-A-Roni people.
He's good shit, so we don't bust his chops.
They're changing their image.
He can run. He can dig. Yeah, he was
Kinda
outstanding
like
in
a
that as
drive-in
well.
movie.
I'm gonna go my number 3, Chevy Chase in Vacation or Christmas Vacation. He was phenomenal. Not only with the lines he had, but his physical comedy, I think, is what pushes it over the top for award winning. My number 2, a guy again who stole the entire movie. To me, this is the comedic version of Silence of the Lambs with Lecter, and that is Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice. He's not in the movie that much.
He doesn't show up till halfway through it.
Yeah, and he's barely in it, but he steals
right.
every scene. He is absolutely phenomenal in it. If you think of Batman and you think of Beetlejuice, and you can't believe the same guy's playing both roles.
That's another great choice that I don't have down, and that's great.
And my number 1 is George Clooney in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Everything that comes out of his mouth, that entire movie is pure gold. And it was a phenomenal show, and he is awesome throughout.
All right. So actually, I got quite a few here that you haven't said yet. I did not have Matt Dillon or John Candy down, but after hearing your guys' lists, John Candy for sure would be in mine. Some honorable mentions that I have here are, we talked a lot about Reese Witherspoon recently in the movie Election, but also in Legally Blonde. I mean, those are,
oh yeah,
and I think she was up for, maybe not Oscars, but I think she was probably up for some awards for Election. I'd have to look back. I mean, it was a very well respected role. I do have Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, like Pete. I put Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal for When Harry Met Sally. The two of them, just the way they work off each other, you can't imagine anybody else in that movie. They're both so fantastic. And she's got the iconic scene in the restaurant. And everything Billy Crystal says is just great. So here's one you guys didn't say that is maybe too underappreciated. Jack Black in School of Rock.
Yeah.
That is such a fantastic movie. And it's fantastic because of him. I mean, his energy in that role takes what's a good movie, but makes it into a great movie. You said Melissa McCarthy. I had Kristen Wiig down for Bridesmaids.
Oh, okay. And very good as well.
They're both good. All right, and then here's my top 5. And I kind of did it more like by actor. So at number 5, Eddie Murphy. And I think Coming to America, Trading Places, and then the one that you don't think of right away, Shrek. The voice work he does is you can't just pull that off. That's Eddie Murphy all the way. And so I thought that was a different inclusion there. But he's also so good in Coming to America and Trading Places that Eddie Murphy's great. I have Steve Martin at number 4. And take your pick from Roxanne, Parenthood, LA Story, or Father of the Bride, or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which somehow totally went over my head. He had a stretch there from 87 to 91 where he put out all 5 of those movies. I mean, Jesus.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And I thought those were his best, The Jerk, though, too. It's a different role, but
and he was the
who else can play the jerk than that?
Well, and he was the glue, as we talked about in Three Amigos.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, just phenomenal.
Yeah. Speaking of somebody nobody's mentioned yet, Martin Short.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Chevy Chase mostly for Vacation, but Christmas Vacation's great too. But I feel like the original movie where he really defined the role is just, and we've talked about it. Go back, please, and listen to our Vacation series. We've done them all.
I think Dave is pissed that he didn't win an Oscar legit for European Vacation.
At number 2, I have Will Ferrell. You guys can say him.
Yeah, I was
the
thinking
obvious one maybe is Elf.
Yep.
But there's a movie that I love, and it's not. See, this was a little tricky because it's not a straight comedy, but the movie Stranger Than Fiction.
Yep. Yeah,
his performance in that movie is so underappreciated. I felt like he should have been up for an Oscar. He's a great actor, and he's way more than what you see. And that movie to me does it. It's not a screwball comedy, but it's a light movie with serious elements. But even if you take that out, Elf and Anchorman, I mean, those are again roles that guy created. And
well, what's this movie that came out over Christmas? The new Christmas one with Ryan Reynolds.
Spirited.
Where he shows his Broadway type skills in that movie. It's like you never would have thought that out of Will Ferrell, but he was good that way too.
So I'm going to put a plug in for Stranger Than Fiction. If you haven't seen it, it's one of my favorites. And then I already gave away my number 1 is Jim Carrey for The Truman Show. Mm-hmm. When that came out, everybody was fully expecting him to be nominated for Best Actor, and it's one of the worst snubs I've ever seen because I thought he should have won. He didn't even get nominated for that movie, and that is just bullshit.
Yep.
He's so good, and that movie is so good, and that stands to me as the biggest snub ever as a comedic performance by an actor who, if it wasn't Jim Carrey playing that role, if it was a more serious actor at the time, first of all, it wouldn't have been as good. But if they pulled it off as good, they might have been nominated. I think he only got not nominated because he's Jim Carrey, and everybody still had Ace Ventura
because he's Dumb and Dumber
in their head.
Yep. That's fair.
Which, by the way, those are great performances too.
Yep.
Well, and him and as Andy Kaufman.
Well, yeah, he
Phantom
went on
Moon.
like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is
Phenomenal.
not a comedy, so I didn't include that. But like,
Yeah.
he's a great actor.
Yeah,
and he's
he is.
proved it.
He can be, yeah.
Over
and he
and
can
over.
do. But the great thing about him is then he can also just absolutely go nuts in something like Dumb and Dumber or Ace Ventura or
It's
Liar
just like
Liar.
Will Ferrell and Steve Martin. These are guys that they can do it all.
Right.
So
I've got a couple honorable mentions I'd like to throw in. I put in Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover.
Oh yeah,
He's got so many great moments. So just his overall look and his demeanor and everything, you believe he is that idiot. And he just does that role so well.
one quote I want to on Zach Galifianakis. Jerry Seinfeld once said about him that and this was on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, right? And so he's telling him to his face. He said, "You have that ability to go out on stage, stand there, not say anything, and the audience will start laughing."
Yeah.
And so right away, you get that kind of vibe from him.
He's a good actor too. He's been in these TV shows and different, like, he's a lot more than just that dumb. He's really funny and he can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also put in Steve Carell from Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, I thought of Steve Carell
because
he's actually done some great dramatic roles.
Yep.
But like if you throw in Little Miss Sunshine or
he's a
Dan in Real
actor.
Life, Crazy Stupid Love, I thought of Ryan Gosling too.
Yep. Well, Ryan Gosling was nominated for a Golden Globe for that.
That's
that role in Crazy Stupid Love. My last one here is Paul Newman from The Sting.
Oh yeah, I still haven't got around to that yet.
So Robert Redford was nominated for that movie, but to me, Paul Newman is just absolutely amazing. And again, it's kind of like not like a full-on comedy. It's a kind of like a Fish Called Wanda with you've got the caper movie and everything like that, but there are so many great comedic moments in that movie. And that movie was nominated for a ridiculous amount of Oscars. So maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit here that he wasn't nominated for it, but I thought he was absolutely amazing in that movie.
All right. Anything else?
Gifford.
I had one more actually. I had Brad Pitt in Snatch. Again, steals every scene that he's in that movie, playing a gypsy boxer that you understand about every fifth word that he says, and it's just absolutely
he's
amazing.
Another good one. And you could talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood almost as a comedy. I mean, his role is very humorous and funny.
No, it's dumber than that.
He's a great actor. See, I think some of these, what I was going for is comedic actors who are really known for comedy.
Sure.
And some of these we're getting into are great performances, but they're known more for maybe dramas or other roles.
Sure.
So
that's fair. That's
but
fair.
That doesn't mean we can't still give them credit.
But like your point with Jim Carrey, some of these other actors who were more like dramatic actors, that's maybe why they got the nod, because like Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for an Oscar as a supporting actor in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
And he was amazing in that role. He's outstanding, but if it was maybe a more comedic
Will Ferrell
actor, he would have probably not been nominated for it. So that's your point with Jim Carrey was excellent.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Gifford, do you know who I think deserves a Grammy?
My guess is any one of the boys from Preacher Row.
Oh, right. Well, or it could just be the entire band. You can give a Grammy to an entire band.
Yes,
Grammy-winning performance with Standing on My Own 2 Feet, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's throw them on.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
to free. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. And start to me on my path. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared but there's nothing I can do.